Welcome to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. We are all surrounded by art. Some love it, some hate it. But the important thing about art is that it evokes some sort of emotion. Today's guest is an incredible artist and champion of women. Her subjects in her paintings are women, and she has an incredible ability to precisely capture the expression of women, analyzing their emotional, psychology, and personal history. I'm joined by Canadian-Italian artist Carla Di Nunzio, who's conceived the term psychic realism as a trademark of her art. Carla is the owner of Di Nunzio Art, and today we're talking about the collective female voice in art. Carla, welcome to Empowered. Thank you for being here today.
Oh, it's great to be on. I'm so excited.
I'm excited too. And in your honor, I threw on this artsy dress because your art is so incredible and I needed to represent you in studio somehow. So,
So you look great. You're fantastic. I love it.
and as do you. So, Carla, talk to me about your professional background as an educator and an artist, because I want to start from the beginning before we get to
Sure.
where you are.
Sure. I've been an educator for over 35 years. I've taught everything from kindergarten to university. I've also taught art. I was the art consultant for Toronto Catholic School Board for 7 years, and then I was seconded to York University at the Faculty of Education as course director. And then I worked at OISE as a facilitator for Building Leadership for Change program that they had there with Saudi Arabian students, and it was a wonderful opportunity. As an artist, I've had a vast experience. I have specialists in arts from York University, and I've studied with masters in Italy. I also studied at the University of Siena and the arts, and it goes on and on and on. I'm constantly learning, and that's why I'm here in Umbria right now. I'm developing my artistic skills in sculpture and ceramics, and I have my artwork on display here in Umbria because of that.
So you are in Umbria right now, and your most recent show in Italy is called Many Voices, and it's
Yes.
received great reviews. Tell us about the significance of the theme of this past show.
Many Voices represents the psychology behind the diversity of women. So there's such diversity around globally of women, what they represent, their different cultural backgrounds, and their voices. And Many Voices represents that collective voice of women. And I'm here to, voice those concerns, voice those sentiments, especially the emotions of women through my artwork. My artwork varies in style because diversity is just that, it's diverse. So my style of art, I couldn't possibly represent the diversity of women without changing the style of my artwork constantly. So I'm now working in all kinds of medium.
So we're going to be showcasing some of your different paintings throughout this interview. And right now, you're currently having a solo exhibit in the medieval town of Spello in Umbria, Italy, and that's where you are right now. And it's called Life Story. In this exhibit, your artist style is quite diverse, quite colorful. Oftentimes, the female form appears fractured. Is there a particular intent for this style of representation of the female form? And the next part of the question is, how much of you is in this?
Oh, quite a bit of me. It's called Life Story because it's basically my life story in many ways. Through my experiences, the ups and downs in my life, I've gone through many different experiences, but also the women that I've encountered in my life, their stories and how they've impacted me, and sort of my intention to help women especially in Italy. I've been helping many different organizations here, and my artwork's fractured because we all are not perfect, and we are fractured because every time we experience something and we go through difficult times or we make connections with people, something in us changes. I had a whole exhibit on called Kaleidoscope, which is what a kaleidoscope is when you're looking through a kaleidoscope. And every time you get, these little pieces kind of change. So everything within us changes. And so every experience, every person we meet, every connection we have changes us in some capacity. And that's where some of my artwork reflects that. And it is our
Carla,
responsibility.
hold that thought one moment. We will be right back after this commercial break, so please don't go away. Welcome back to Empowered. I am Elizabeth Naumovski. On today's episode, we're discussing the collective female voice of art. Now, Carla, before we went to commercial break, we were talking about Kaleidoscope, your fractured painting. So if you can please continue.
Yes, the style of artwork, I use oils and cold wax, and I fracture the images. The backgrounds of the paintings also are similar to that, and it's because we are fractured. We have, through our experiences, sometimes we're hurt, we've been disillusioned, all of those things. And it's our responsibility at some point to really look at our past, look at who we are, and to sort of piece together these little fragments of ourselves to be more whole, to be able to represent ourselves more fully to others once we piece ourselves together and then be able to project our what we represent to others.
So, it's really interesting. You talked about, we're not perfect. That word perfect seems to pop up on a regular basis on the show. And the fact of the matter is, it's a moving barometer. I mean, there's no such thing as perfection. So I want to ask you, what message do you wish to communicate through your art form?
The message that I want to communicate through my art form is that we all have a responsibility here. I think we're all here for a reason, and we need to reflect. We need to know who we are first before we figure out why we're here, and then what we're to do for service to others. I think I've realized that in my own life, and this my life story is that I've come to realize that the service that I have given through the education that I've provided, but also the women that I've empowered to go forward, and that collective voice of standing up for what is right and making sure that we don't just hide and bury ourselves, but that we stand up and we do what is right for a better society.
I'm a huge believer in mentorship and supporting friends, other women, whatever. But there's always been someone or a group of women or someone who has been there for you to help influence you. So growing up, who have been the most influential women in your life?
I think from the early days, it's been my grandmother. My grandmother, my dad's mom, and she was very instrumental because I saw this woman raising 9 children. I mean, I couldn't even imagine raising. I have 3 children, and I couldn't even possibly imagine raising 9 in the time of complete poverty, and they didn't have enough food. My grandmother sacrificed everything. They had this little 1-room house. They put it up on mortgage to send my dad to Canada. And this woman, who had very little support from her husband, had to work as a midwife, as a nurse, and support these 9 kids, washing laundry down at the river. I mean, it was just, I don't know even how she did it. But I have learned through her that grit and perseverance is what we really need today as women, to do what we need to do for our families, for each other. She taught me that you don't give up, you just keep going. And no matter how hard it is, you just keep plugging away.
It's that whole resilience, which has been coming up a lot on the show as well. So, I mean, you talked about your grandmother, and you are in Umbria right now. Is there an artist who has particularly inspired or influenced you as an artist?
Oh my God. From the very beginning, my dad always took me to museums and art galleries from the time I was really young, like 4 or 5 years of age. And so all the masters in Italy, of course, Da Vinci, even my logo has Da Vinci, but I'm the Vitruvian woman in it, not the Vitruvian man. And of course, Michelangelo and all the great artists, the Italian artists, and some of the French artists that have been great influence. I think in today's world, I'm Jenny Saville, from London who paints the flesh of women, and I think it's so important. She represents women of today, and Cindy Sherman, who also shows women in today's society and how they're influenced by the media, the culture that we live in. There's so many that influence me. I can't even begin to talk
So,
about them all.
so Carla, when we come back from break, we're going to talk about the artwork that you've coined as psychic realism. So please don't go away. We'll be right back with Carla and more of her art. Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. On today's episode, we're discussing the collective female voice in art. And Carla, before we went to break, I mentioned psychic realism. So this is the style of your artwork, and you coined this phrase. What exactly is this?
What it means is that I think there's a need today. There's a need today to look at ourselves deeper than what we're doing. We're kind of getting caught up into this world, this frenetic world we live in, and we're kind of on autopilot, and we keep going and going and going and going. We never have a chance to really reflect on who we are, what we're doing, where we're going, what do we represent, what's my purpose here, and I think we really need to look at, especially the emotions that we have. We've kind of put them on the back burner. We don't even realize it. I think the world needs more empathy today, and we need to be able to project what others are feeling as well. And that's something that I don't see enough of today in this very egocentric kind of existence that we're living in. So psychic realism is about the psychology behind the works that I do to bring light to these emotions for others, not just women, but everyone, to look at this artwork that I do and to look at themselves and reflect what they represent, what are the emotions behind themselves that maybe they just haven't really thought about it, and they just keep going through the emotions of life, day to day, routine, and not really looking deep within themselves.
So, speaking of empathy, there's a strong emotional impact in your artwork, and it seems that it's captured through various styles, pop art, expressionism, classical portraiture, collage, acrylics, oils, watercolor. And typically, an artist will stick to one form. However, you've decided to engage in all of these, which is difficult. Why did you decide to do this?
I like the challenge, for one thing.
Don't we all?
uh, I think because people are so different, and women are so diverse, and my paintings are about color, and I think diversity is all about color, and I've put in a lot of patterns and colors to show that kind of diversity. I can't stick to one style because whatever message I have out there, I have to change it to get to the deeper meaning of things. And now I'm bringing that message into other forms of artwork. I've been working in Umbria for the past 2 years now, working on sculptures and ceramics, and I'm just going to play with it and bring out as much as I can within in this message of diversity. I want to embrace diversity. It's not something to be tolerated. When I hear the word, yeah, we can tolerate this, tolerate that, I get really angry because it's not about tolerance. Tolerance is a negative word. And I see a diversity as something to embrace, something that is rich in flavor in every aspect of life. So I celebrate it, and that's what I want through my artwork, a celebratory kind of representation of women out there, and not something to be tolerated.
I love it. So, in your latest published art book, your art critic said a statement, and he said, the many voices that Carla speaks of are therefore the kaleidoscope multitude of people who represent the mosaic of humanity, kind of like what you were just saying. He said
Yes.
there is not only the psychological analysis of her characters, but also the convinced embrace of diversity. So I know you touched upon diversity, but I wanted to talk about his quote. Can you further elaborate on this with regards to the message to our audience today?
Well, I think that, people going through the show often think that this is a show just for women. And men, when they first started talking to me, when they came in to see my art show, they said, "Oh, you just paint women. Us men have been left out." And I said, "No, no, this is not about just women. This is it is also it represents everyone. Some of my artwork shows that these emotions are not just solely women's emotions; they're emotions that men experience as well. So it does represent. I mean, we are the multitude of voices that are out there is as complex as ever, and the cultural diversity is as complex as ever. And I think that, we need to look at each other as from a point of humanity, not so much as a point of being different, but that we all have the same needs, and um, we all want the same things ultimately.
We absolutely do. And we're going to touch upon more of that when we come back after this next commercial break. More with Carla Di Nunzio. Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. On today's episode, we're discussing the collective female voice in art, and I'm joined by Canadian-Italian artist Carla Di Nunzio, who has conceived the term psychic realism as a trademark of her art. Now, Carla, who are the protagonists behind your artwork? Are they people that you know or purely created out of your imagination?
Both.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm influenced by people that I meet, so something within them will inspire me to paint them. And other times it's just there's an emotion I want to capture, and I just create the image myself.
So let's look at some of the female psychology behind your artwork. What can you tell us
Sure.
about the paintings? There's the few of them: La La Land, Let's Cross Over, and Tartan Rose.
Well, La La Land is really interesting. It's what we all like to do, and that is live in a fantasy world. So this woman is on a swing. She's swinging. She's looking at you. She wants you to come for this ride. Live in the fantasy for a while and don't touch reality. And I think we all need to do that at some point in our life, because life can get really tough.
Mhm.
And so we need to set kind of sort of like a healing process to be able to live in a fantasy for a while. Going beyond attraversiamo, which is means leaving one thing behind and going forward. We're always crossing over from one part of our life to another, and and some people are very afraid of doing that, but it is necessary. I mean, we finish education, we go into a career, we go from career, we go into different aspects of our life, marriage, children, all kinds of things, and we need to enter these new areas of our life with fierceness, and don't be afraid of it. And what was the last one that you said?
The last one was Tartan Rose.
Tartan Rose's women. Oh, the Tartan Rose one is about a woman who's holding on to her hat and she's falling. And we all fall at some point in our life, many times, maybe. I've fallen many times in my life, anyways. And so she's holding onto her hat, but it never falls off of her head, and she gets back up again. And I think that's the message. Like, we fall forward. We have to fall forward. We have to experience downfalls in our life to be able to pick ourselves back up and keep going. And I think that in many respects, failing is often it through that experience where we can even go higher and go, further in our lives.
And you know what? There's so much truth to that. Failing. We need to fail, and people are so afraid of failing. But we need to keep our hat on and fall forward and fail again so that we learn from it, so that we do become successful in the long run. I want to turn to two of your paintings from the series called The Naked Truth. They are
Yes.
quite intimate sexually. So,
Yes.
dualistic and romanticism of self. What deep psychological messages do they convey about the female psyche?
Romanticism of self, for one thing, is it looks like two women embracing each other. It could be looked at as, two female lovers, but it's not. It is the same woman. And she's embracing a part of herself that she wants to be. And I think as fractured, because my women are fractured, this woman in particular wants to be something different. She wants to be more of something, more perfect, more beautiful. We're never satisfied with ourselves. We always want to be something different. And this is what this painting represents. The fantasy within ourselves that we always want to be. We want to be younger, we want to be more beautiful, we want to be, more and more and more. And we're never really truly happy with ourselves. That's that painting. The other one is called dualism, and we all have two parts to us. And many young women experience this challenge where if they're too simple, too naive, and too shy, they're not interesting enough to out there in terms of finding a partner. And if they're too the opposite way, very voluptuous, like, and very exuberant sexually, like the painting is very, there's very big breasts in this painting, they're perceived as being easy. And therefore, women are always balancing, which way should I be? Should I be more this way? Should I be more that way? If I'm too this way, I'm not accepted. If I'm too this way,
Carla, I'm so sorry. We have to go. We've run out of time, but thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, it's been wonderful. Thank you so much.
Carla says, and I quote, "It is this consistent flow of work and experiences from various environments that brings forth the source of complexity in the psychic awareness of the subjects I paint. You can love art or hate it. The passion in the interpretation is always in the eyes of the beholder." I'm Elizabeth Naumovski, and I'm here to empower you and make frugality fashionable. Bye for now.